She walks into the room and everyone stops breathing, not because she's beautiful, though she is, but because beauty is the weapon, not the person. She lies with a smile, she steals with a kiss, she ruins lives and walks away in heels that cost more than your rent. And audiences across every medium, every generation, every culture are obsessed with her. The Femme Fatale, the woman who is simultaneously the prize and the trap. The character who teaches us that desire and destruction are functionally identical. We know she's dangerous, we know she's using us, we know how this ends, and we can't look away. The question isn't why she exists, the question is, what does our obsession with her reveal about what we actually want?
Winston, what's there to investigate? We all know people love characters who lie, manipulate, steal, and seduce them way through entire stories. Characters who betray everybody they meet and still have the audience cheering? That not mystery, man. That just humanity admitting chaos more interesting than stability. We're basically studying why people keep picking up the scorpion, even when them know it about to sting.
Precisely, Toombs. And the scorpion always stings, but we keep picking it up anyways. Let's examine why. The Femme Fatale follows a remarkably consistent template across all media. She is beautiful in a way that feels deliberate, weaponized. She's intelligent, often more intelligent than the protagonist. She operates by her own moral code, which typically prioritizes self-interest over loyalty. She uses attraction as a tool, not an emotion. And most importantly, she is unknowable. No matter how much time you spend with her, you never quite understand her motivations. Is she helping you or manipulating you? Does she care about you or is she using you? The ambiguity is the appeal. Catwoman steals, not because she needs to. She's often depicted as wealthy or capable of earning legitimately, but because the act of taking what isn't hers is the point. Black Cat does the same thing in the Spider-Man universe. They're thieves who could choose not to be, which makes the theft an identity rather than a necessity. Poison Ivy in DC Comics is an eco-terrorist who murders people with toxins and mind controls them with her pheromones. She's explicitly a villain, and yet she remains one of the most popular characters in the Batman Rogues gallery. Not despite her villainy, because of it. Because her villainy is seductive, literally and metaphorically. In anime, Makima from Chainsaw Man represents the archetype's most disturbing evolution. She is a government official with the ability to control anyone she considers beneath her. She manipulates the protagonist Denji by offering him affection, purpose, and belonging, all while treating him as a disposable tool. She orchestrates deaths, ruins lives, and pursues her goals with complete disregard for human suffering. And she does it all while maintaining a perfect composure and unsettling smile. She is control personified, and fans are obsessed with her.
So what you're saying is, the Femme Fatale lies, steals, manipulates, betray everybody, and instead of being the villain, she end up the romantic interest? Winston, that's not character development. That's society collectively agreeing toxic behavior become acceptable if the person doing it's stylish enough. That's just pretty privilege on display, man.
And it works because the archetype taps into something fundamental. The belief that someone dangerous might make an exception for you. That you might be the one person she doesn't betray. That beneath the manipulation, there's something real. That is a psychological hook. Not that she's dangerous, but that you might be special enough to survive her. The Femme Fatale works because she represents a very specific fantasy. The taming of chaos. She's dangerous, yes. But what if you could be the one who reaches her? What if beneath the lies and manipulation, there's vulnerability that only you can access? This is why Batman and Catwoman's relationship endures across decades. Batman represents order, Catwoman represents chaos, and their dynamic is built on the perpetual question, can order and chaos coexist? The answer is almost always no, but the possibility that it could be yes is what keeps the audience invested. In gaming, this manifests as Bayonetta, a character whose entire design is built around weaponized sexuality. She fights in a suit made of her own hair that disappears during special attacks. She's overtly, aggressively sexual in ways that would be criticized in other contexts, but it's framed as her power, her choice, her weapon, and that framing changes how audiences perceive it. She's not being objectified, she's objectifying you by using your attraction against you. This is the mechanism. The femme fatale makes you complicit in your own manipulation. You know she's dangerous. You know she's using you. But the knowledge doesn't protect you because their attraction isn't rational. It's psychological. This archetype codified in the 1940s and 50s. Women like Phyllis Dietrichson in Double Indemnity or Kathy Moffat in Out of the Past. These were women who manipulated men into committing crimes, then betrayed them. The men knew they were being manipulated. The films explicitly showed the manipulation happening, and the men proceeded anyway, because the alternative, walking away from the dangerous woman, felt like a greater loss than the inevitable betrayal.
So, the real trick is, she make you feel special for standing near the danger. Like you win some prize just being close to her, even though the prize is really a one-way ticket to betrayal. Winston, that not romance. That just a con. With better lighting.
Precisely. And the con only works if you believe you're not being conned. Which is why the femme fatale must maintain ambiguity. The moment you're certain she's manipulating you, the spell breaks. But as long as there's doubt, as long as there's a chance her feelings might be real, you'll stay. And she knows this. Here's what's revealing about the femme fatale's popularity. Audiences don't love her despite her flaws. They love her because of them. When asked why they find these characters appealing, fans describe qualities like confidence, independence, and doesn't need anyone. Takes what she wants. These are positive reframings of manipulation, theft, and betrayal. Catwoman doesn't need Batman because she's emotionally unavailable and prioritizes self-interest, but that's framed as strength. Poison Ivy takes what she wants by murdering people who oppose her environmental terrorism, but that's framed as conviction. Black Cat is independent because she refuses to commit to Spider-Man while continuing to use him when convenient, but that's framed as agency. Esdeath's popularity from Akamega Kill is particularly instructive. She treats the protagonist like a pet. She orchestrates his trauma. She uses his desperate need for affection to control him completely. And fans describe her as badass and goals, because her control is absolute. And absolute control, when wielded by someone attractive, looks like power rather than abuse. This reframing is critical to understanding the archetype's appeal, because if these behaviors were presented in a male character, they would be unambiguously villainous. A man who manipulates, lies, steals, and refuses emotional availability while maintaining sexual romantic access would be called a narcissist or an abuser. But when a woman does it, it's reframed as empowerment, as reclaiming agency, as subverting expectations. And the audience will accept this framing because the femme fatale is aesthetically coded as aspirational. She dresses well, she's articulate, she's competent, she's never desperate or weak. And in a culture that often presents women as either virtuous victims or irredeemable villains, the femme fatale offers a third option, powerful and morally flexible.
Hold on now, Winston. You're saying the femme fatale popular because she get to do everything society normally punish women for? Lie, manipulate, choose herself, avoid emotional responsibility? And instead of consequences, she get admiration? That not empowerment, man. That fantasy where consequences mysteriously disappear.
Exactly. The femme fatale exists in a moral framework where her actions don't have real cost. Catwoman steals, but we rarely see the people she steals from. Poison Ivy kills, but her victims are usually framed as deserving it. Black Cat betrays Spider-Man, but he keeps coming back, so there's no permanent damage. Esdeath destroys lives, but the narrative presents her as magnificent in her cruelty. The archetype only works if you don't examine the actual impact of her behavior, because if you did, she'd just be a villain, and we'd have to stop finding her attractive. And this reveals what audiences are actually responding to. The fantasy of being powerful without being accountable, of taking what you want without consequences, of being desired without having to commit. The femme fatale offers freedom from social contracts, and that freedom looks appealing because we're seeing it from the outside, where it seems like power, not from the inside, where it's isolation. Here's what the femme fatale actually teaches: that love is a game where someone wins and someone loses, that vulnerability is weakness, that commitment is a trap, that the person who cares less has the power. These aren't healthy frameworks for understanding relationships, but they're the frameworks that the archetype normalizes. When Batman keeps returning to Catwoman despite her repeated betrayals, he's modeling the belief that love means accepting mistreatment from someone you're attracted to. When Spider-Man continues pursuing Black Cat, Even though she explicitly tells him she's not interested in Peter Parker, only Spider-Man, he's modeling the belief that if you're persistent enough, someone who doesn't want you might change their mind. When Chainsaw Man fans romanticize Makima's treatment of Denji, despite the story explicitly framing it as abuse, they're demonstrating that aesthetics can override ethics, that if someone looks good while hurting you, the hurt becomes part of the appeal. And the Femme Fatale herself embodies a specific philosophy, that independence requires emotional unavailability, that power means never being vulnerable, that the moment you care about someone more than you care about you, you've lost. This is why Femme Fatales rarely have happy endings, because the archetype is built on the premise that connection and power are mutually exclusive. Bayonetta is powerful because she's untouchable. Makima is effective because she's unattached to human life. Poison Ivy is dangerous because she doesn't care about human relationships outside of what they can provide for her. The archetype teaches that to be truly free, you must be alone. And to be powerful, you must be willing to hurt people.
So basically, the Femme Fatale teaching everybody that caring too much is weakness. Commitment means losing. And the perfect relationship is one where ya hold all the power and the other person have none. Winston, that not just character archetype. That sound like a training manual for emotionally confused adults who think love is competitive sport.
And it works because it's packaged as sophistication, as knowing better than to be naive, as protecting yourself from getting hurt. The Femme Fatale never gets her heart broken because she never gives her heart. And in a world where heartbreak is common and painful, that looks like wisdom. It's not. It's avoidance. And here's the final cost. The Femme Fatale can never be truly known, which means she can never be truly loved, because love requires vulnerability. It requires letting someone see you without the mask, and the Femme Fatale's entire identity is the mask. Remove it, and there's either nothing underneath, or something so damaged that the mask was necessary for survival. This is why attempts to redeem Femme Fatales often feel hollow, because redemption will require vulnerability, and vulnerability will destroy the archetype. Catwoman can have moments of heroism, but she can't commit to being the hero, because that would mean giving up the ambiguity that makes her interesting. The moment she chooses a side permanently, she stops being a Femme Fatale and becomes just another character. The Femme Fatale is a character who can never change without ceasing to exist, and that stasis is exactly what makes her appealing. She represents a fixed point in a chaotic world. She will always be dangerous. She will always be beautiful. She will always be unknowable. And in that consistency, audiences find something they can't find in real relationships. Predictability masquerading as excitement. We love the Femme Fatale because she'll never ask us to grow. She'll never demand vulnerability. She'll never expect commitment. She offers the aesthetics of passion without any of the actual work of intimacy. And that, apparently, is exactly what we want. So here's my question. Think about the Femme Fatale you find most compelling. The one whose posters you bought. The ones whose scenes you rewatched. Whose moral flexibility you found fascinating rather than repellent. And now ask yourself, if someone treated you that way she treats everyone in her story, lying, manipulating, prioritizing themselves, refusing real commitment while maintaining access to you, would you call that love? Or would you call it exactly what it is? Because the Femme Fatale only works as fantasy. In reality, she's just someone who hurts people and looks good doing it. The question is why? Why do we need the fantasy?
For what it's worth, Winston, me think people just lonely and tired. And the Femme Fatale offer the illusion of connection without the risk of actually getting hurt. But that's just me observation from beyond the grave.
That's everyone's observation, Tombs. They just don't want to admit it.